Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Morning May. Today is day 124 since my daughter died. For those of you who are just joining, my little 2-year-old right there in the corner, that is my little Maybell. She died on June 22nd of 2024. She was 2 years old, 1 month, and 14 days to the day. She had been alive for 776 glorious days. And I miss her every minute, every second of every hour of every day. I wish I could tell y'all that has changed in the last 4-ish months, but it has not. And I don't know that it will ever change. I started this channel, Morning May, to kind of document my way as I navigate through this labyrinth that is grieving. It is a sneaky bitch. That is the kindest way I know how to say it. This morning, I spent 45 minutes or so screaming in the kitchen and crying. Lots of crying. A whole lot of crying. So I had to wait to film the video so that my eyes weren't as red. And then I thought about these kind of days. I thought about what day of the month it is. As I said, my daughter died on the 22nd of June. And so I noticed that whenever it's around the 22nd, sometimes it's a little before, sometimes a little after, but whenever it's around that time, I get very agitated. I'm very melancholy, very sad, just out of proportion to my everyday to kind of cope. And usually when people ask me about that, I always say, well, I'm having a bad day. Having a bad day. And as I'm screaming and crying, I think, why do I always say that they're such bad days? Is what makes them bad? Is it just the fact that I'm crying? And when I think about it, then yeah, that is why I categorize them as bad days, because I'm crying, and crying is supposed to be bad. I was raised in a household and I was told you're supposed to walk on your feelings. So crying, to me, I internalize that as some form of weakness. Prior to losing a child, I had never known grief like this. And that's not to say I didn't lose grandparents or I hadn't lost friends in high school and stuff. I had, and I was sad about all of those things, but this is next level. And I never knew that you could hurt this badly and still continue to breathe. But you do. So when I think about these days where I am not grieving, I am definitely feeling deep and intense grief. And grief, Mary Frances O'Connor essentially defines as when you are acutely aware of what you have lost. And on days somewhere around the 22nd of the month, I become acutely aware in that moment of what I've lost. But because I'm in grief, because I am acutely aware of the grief, is that a bad day? Just because the grief feels bad, because crying to me is supposed to be this bad thing. Because I hold two things in my mind. That crying in and of itself is not bad. Why should that be bad? We never consider laughter as bad, and isn't crying just the other side of laughter, right? Because laughter is the physical expression of an emotion, of happiness. of joy, of glee. And yet, when we express grief and it comes out as tears, we always give it a negative connotation. Somehow this is bad, and bad isn't even emotion. It might be, a state of being, I guess, but it's not an emotion. And especially when you're crying in response to grief, which is the natural and normal response to a loss. You're supposed to feel grief. That's human, right? But we give it this terrible connotation that it's somehow negative because most people don't feel the best in the world when they're crying. And let's be honest here, usually when people see someone crying, it makes them incredibly uncomfortable. And because they're uncomfortable, then now you have to pull yourself together so that way you can alleviate them from feeling their discomfort. And I think that's an entirely wrong narrative. So as I was coming out of my crying fit and my screaming fit, I realized that I don't like referring to these moments as bad days. What's bad about them? They are a reflection of how much I love her. And so I think I'm going to start to refer to them as Remembrance Days. And like I say, for me, it's the 22nd of or thereabout of every month. And I really want to change the language because it is not a bad day. It's a necessary day. It's a needed day. Sometimes I need a couple of them a month. And it's really a day of balance. It's a day of balance because life is balanced, right? It's cyclic. The same road that takes you uphill also takes you downhill. That's the cycle. That's how it works. So these days where I am acutely aware of what I've lost, they balance out me having to shoulder that loss. So yes, these are necessary days. They're not bad. I'm not going to say they're good because that would also not be true. They're just balanced and they're just part of it. They're part of this entire conundrum that we're trying to navigate. These days of remembrance for me are a day of feeling because most of the time I am living in a very tight, controlled circle of trying to navigate and carry and bear what nobody should have to bear. Nobody should be part of this club. It is my ardent wish that for those of you who find yourself here because you're grieving something other than the loss of a child, I hope that you never ever experience the loss of a child. 0 of 10 do not recommend. And the other thing that I noticed about this day when I am acutely aware of the grief of what I have lost is that it's also a profound moment of connection because I am thinking about all the things that she was, how spectacular she was, how beautiful, how irreplaceable. And I think about all the things that we don't get, right? So on the one hand, so the reason it's such a great day of connection or it's such a profound moment of connection is because I'm filled with so much want and so much desire, right? Because I want to see her and I want to chase her and I want to tickle her until she's breathless. And I want to watch her discover blades of grass and ants and watch her figure out how to climb the back fence or climb onto the trailer or discover a snail and to figure out whether or not she can eat it. I want so much to be able to turn back time and freeze those moments. the longing is overwhelming. But shouldn't I long what I cannot have? Because I can't. I miss the messes. I used to complain about them all the time, but I miss the messes. I miss having to fish her out of the toilet because, from her perspective, it's just a tiny bathtub that's never empty. And on rare occasions, she might find things in there that somebody forgot to flush, and those become bath toys. And I know that's incredibly gross, but it's also incredibly human because she was 1 and 2 and she was learning about the world. And her brother is still at that age where sometimes he remembers to flush and sometimes he doesn't. And she was growing up with him in those moments as they were both learning. And I miss that. I miss it profoundly. And I would like to say that it's just a longing for what we lost in terms of like what we were actually dealing with, but it's more than that. Again, borrowing from Mary Frances O'Connor, it's the loss of the we. I was a mother to a daughter that was a relationship, and it had to change because part of that we that made me a girl mom, well, she's not here now, right? So it's longing for that which is out of my reach, that I am powerless to change, and I long for it. And I remember that it was right there in my grasp. And somehow it has slipped through my fingers. And I mourn that. I remember the plans we had. And yeah, I remember all of the tomorrows that we're not going to get, all of the tomorrows that were in my head that we are not going to get. We had so many plans, so many plans. And it is a travesty that those plans now have to find space in my heart because I won't be able to realize them here in this world with her. And I know it sounds crazy, but I miss all of those things. I miss arguing with her about a boyfriend that's totally wrong, which of course we never did, but I miss the fact that we never will. I miss the arguments over her wanting to wear something wildly inappropriate to her grandmother's birthday party that we'll never argue about. I miss comforting her for the broken bone she'll get because I told her not to climb that tree and she did it anyway. But because she died, that bone will never be broken. I miss that I'll never hide a lost tooth under her pillow. That'll never happen. She will never lose a tooth. She didn't even have a full set of teeth. She was too young for that. But I miss those moments that we won't get. I long for everything about her. And because those are all beautiful moments, those are all beautiful things to long for. I refuse to keep referring to these as bad days. These are remembrance days because I remember everything that she was, and I remember everything that I had hoped she would be. So, what's so bad about wanting to remember and wanting to be nearer to someone that you love beyond all reason and all measure? And the answer to that question is that there's nothing bad about that. That we should change the narrative that makes it seem like recognizing our grief and making space for that grief is somehow bad. It's not. It's not bad. It's human. It's human. We're not machines. So you have to ask yourself, are these really bad days when they're overflowing with so much love, so much love. And it's really the most pure form of love because she can never reciprocate this, right? She can never, in response to me saying, May, I love you, she can never look at me and say, Mama, I love you too. I'm never going to hear that. So it's a love that I give freely, even though I know it can never be paid back. It's never going to be paid back. And still, I'm going to give it because my heart can't imagine anything else. It wouldn't be able to be any other way. The truth of the matter is that my love for her did not stop. It never will stop. All of this love that I have in my heart, it didn't stop because her heart stopped. That's not how it works. That's not the deal. Don't get me wrong. If at the end of all this there is some infinitesimal way that somehow the energy that is me can find the energy that is her somehow in the cosmos, in the light, in whatever, trust and believe I'm going to keep searching for her until I find her. I wouldn't know how to stop. I will look for her endlessly, if at all possible. I'll look for her in a black hole if I have to. Because that's what love does. The thing that we have to realize is that at the end of the day, my tears are just a way for my love to take up space. It's a way for all of that love I have for her to become tangible. Because love in and of itself is something that's just delicate and gossamer and ethereal. But your love, honestly, it wants to be seen. And in life, we give it ways to be seen, right? We buy them things or we take them places or we make them laugh or whatever. And in that way, our love is seen. And since we no longer have that avenue to make it seen, it has to be seen somewhere else. And honestly, in early grief, tears are just the easiest. It's the easiest thing for your grief to access. It's the easiest way for that love to become tangible. And so that's what it uses. That's it. It's the easiest way for it to manifest. What we have to change, or the narrative we have to change, is to make that okay. Because it's healthy and it's beautiful for that to be okay. And it's so incredible and so infallible. It is like I said, the purest way to express that love, to express a feeling that really can't be encapsulated. It can't be contained. It takes up all the air in the room. And the truth of the matter is that words fail its purity. So tears they're the next best thing. They're a vehicle that doesn't need words. And yes, these Remembrance Days, they are gut-wrenching, but they're also cathartic. And it feels a lot like giving birth. It's painful, but it's glorious. It is the most perfect way that I found in these 4 months of mourning to tell her in no uncertain terms, I love you endlessly. And that is probably all I have for today. So I will catch you guys in the next one.